A dog drags a tiny, injured puppy into a vet's clinic. But the moment the vet takes a closer look, everything changes. This isn't a puppy at all, it's something far more dangerous and far more rare. Suddenly, a simple act of compassion sparks a battle against greed, fear, and powerful enemies who will do anything to keep the truth buried. As secrets come to light and danger closes in, one question remains. Will the vet's courage be enough to protect what was never meant to be discovered? This space is built on something simple and enduring. The power of love, the truth and kindness, and the belief that quiet care can still change lives. The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of Helena Caro's veterinary clinic, casting long shadows across the worn linoleum floor. She stood at her small metal sink, scrubbing her hands after treating old Mr. Johnson's arthritic barn cat. The familiar scent of antiseptic and pet food hung in the air, mixing with the earthy smell that drifted in through the open window. Another quiet morning, Helena murmured to herself, glancing at the clock that read 8:15. Her small practice, housed in what used to be a converted general store, wasn't exactly the prestigious career her medical school professors had envisioned for her. But here, in the heart of rural Appalachia, she'd found her purpose. The worn bell above the door jingled, pulling her from her thoughts. "Be right there," she called out, quickly drying her hands on a paper towel. But when she stepped into the waiting room, she found no human waiting. Instead, Old Blue, the Thompson family's aging farm dog, stood in the doorway, his gray muzzle flecked with white and his tail wagging slowly. "Blue, what brings you here, boy?" Helena asked, kneeling down. That's when she noticed what the old dog was so carefully guarding, a small trembling bundle of fur pressed against his side. Blue nudged the creature forward with his nose, looking up at Helena with what she could have sworn was a pleading expression. The little one couldn't have been more than a few months old, its body shaking with each labored breath. "Oh, you poor thing," Helena whispered, carefully approaching. She'd seen countless injured animals in her 15 years of practice, but something about this one made her pause. As she reached out, the creature's eyes met hers. Helena's breath caught in her throat. These weren't the soft, trusting eyes of a domestic puppy. They were wild, intelligent, and filled with a wariness that spoke of generations of survival instinct. "Let's get you both into the exam room," she said softly, leading the way. Blue followed, never straying from the smaller animal's side. Under the bright examination lights, Helena began her assessment, speaking in low, soothing tones as she worked. The creature's fur was a distinctive reddish-gray, unlike any dog breed she recognized. Its paw pads were larger than they should be for its size, and its movements, even injured, held a fluid grace that seemed out of place in a domestic animal. "Hold still, little one," she murmured, gently examining a nasty wound on its left hind leg. The injury looked like it came from a steel trap, illegal in these parts, but she'd treated enough similar wounds to recognize the distinctive damage. Her jaw clenched at the thought of someone setting such a cruel device. As she worked, her mind began connecting the dots. The distinctive ear shape, the unusual coat pattern, the wild intelligence in those eyes. This wasn't just an unusual puppy. Her heart began to race as the realization dawned. "Oh my goodness," she whispered, sitting back on her heels. She'd read about them, seen pictures in her veterinary journals, but never expected to encounter one here. This wasn't a dog at all, it was a wolf hybrid, a creature that represented both the wild and domestic worlds, and its presence here could mean trouble for everyone involved. Blue whined softly, pressing his nose against the hybrid pup's ear. The old farm dog's protective behavior made more sense now. He hadn't just found an injured puppy. He'd somehow recognized a creature in desperate need of help. Regardless of its wild heritage, Helena stood up slowly, her mind racing. The presence of a wolf hybrid in these parts was significant enough, but the fact that it was just a pup meant there had to be others. A mother, at least, and possibly a whole pack nearby. The implications made her stomach twist. There were plenty of people in the area who wouldn't take kindly to wolves of any kind near their livestock. She looked down at the injured pup, who had finally stopped trembling and was watching her with those unervingly intelligent eyes. "Well, little one," she said softly, "you've certainly made my day a lot more interesting." The pup's ears twitched at her voice, and for a moment, she saw a flash of something almost like trust in its wild. Gazed out, moving carefully, Helena began gathering supplies to treat the leg wound. She needed to work quickly. The longer the pup stayed here, the greater the risk of someone discovering its true nature. As she prepared an antiseptic solution, she found herself speaking softly to both animals. "You did good bringing this one to me, Blue," she said, scratching behind the old dog's ears. "Though I have to wonder how you found each other." Blue's tail thumped against the floor, but his eyes never left the pup. The wound cleaning took longer than usual. The pup, while surprisingly cooperative, still flinched at unexpected touches. Helena worked methodically, her experienced hands gentle but firm as she removed debris and applied medication. Through it all, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment marked a turning point, though she couldn't yet say how. As she finished wrapping the leg in a light bandage, Helena took a moment to really study her unusual patient. Beyond the immediate injury, the pup was actually in good condition, well-fed and muscled, with a healthy coat despite its young age. This wasn't an abandoned hybrid or an escaped exotic pet. This was a wild-born creature, which meant somewhere out there a mother was waiting. "You're not alone out there, are you?" Helena mused aloud, carefully running her hand along the pup's back. The fur felt different from any dog she'd treated, coarser, with a density that spoke of wilderness survival. "Your mama must be worried. Sick." As if in response to her words, the pup's ears perked up, and it let out a soft whine. The sound was different from a domestic dog's, slightly higher, with an almost musical quality that sent a shiver down Helena's spine. This was the sound of the wild, right here in her little examination room. The morning light had shifted to afternoon gold by the time Helena finished her examination. She had documented everything carefully, taking photos and measurements that she knew might be important later. The pup had finally relaxed enough to accept small bits of food from her hand, though its wild wariness never fully disappeared. Looking at her two patients, the loyal old farm dog and the wild hybrid pup, Helena felt the weight of knowledge settle on her shoulders. She couldn't simply treat this like any other case. The presence of a wolf hybrid, especially a pup, would be explosive news in their small community. She needed to be careful, strategic, and above all, protective of the trust these animals had placed in her. "Well," she said finally, scratching Blue's head while the pup watched with those keen eyes, "I guess this isn't such an ordinary day after all." The old dog wagged his tail in agreement, while the pup tilted its head, studying her with an intensity that seemed to look right through her. In that moment, Helena knew her life had just become considerably more complicated. Dr. Helena Caro took a deep breath, steadying her hands as she began a more thorough examination of the hybrid pup. Her initial shock gave way to the familiar calm that came with years of veterinary experience. The old farm dog Blue settled himself near the examination table, his watchful eyes never leaving the trembling creature. "Easy now, little one," Helena murmured, her gentle hands moving methodically over the pup's body. The initial cursory check had revealed the obvious leg injury, but now she could see there was more, much more. Her stomach tightened as she discovered the extent of the damage. The pup's right front paw was crushed, the delicate bones distorted in a way that made Helena's jaw clench. The pattern of the injury was unmistakable. She'd seen it before in domestic dogs and wild animals alike. This was the work of a steel trap, illegal in their county, but still used by those who cared more about protecting their interests than following the law. "Oh, you poor thing," she whispered, carefully cleaning the wound. The pup whimpered but remained surprisingly still, as if understanding her intentions. This wasn't an accident, was it? As she worked, Helena documented everything with her clinic's old digital camera. The crushing injury from the trap, the deep gashes where the animal had likely struggled to free itself, the pattern of bruising. That suggested a violent escape. Each click of the camera felt like evidence being gathered, though for what, she wasn't yet sure. The treatment took over 2 hours. Helena cleaned the wounds thoroughly, administered antibiotics, and carefully bandaged the injured paw. Throughout the procedure, she found herself marveling at the pup's unique features: the distinctive reddish-gray fur, the powerful build even in such a young animal, the wild intelligence in those amber eyes. Blue remained a constant presence, occasionally nudging the pup with his nose when it showed signs of distress. The old farm dog's protective behavior was remarkable, defying the natural order of things. Domestic dogs typically feared or showed aggression toward wolves, yet here was Blue, acting like a guardian to this wild creature. As Helena worked, she became aware of voices outside her clinic. The morning had advanced, and her regular clients would be arriving soon. Through the window, she could see Mrs. Patterson's pickup truck pulling into the gravel parking lot, and with it came the first whispers of trouble. "Did you hear?" Mrs. Patterson's voice carried through the thin walls. "Tommy swears he saw a wolf near the Miller's property last week. Said it was bigger than any coyote he'd ever seen." Helena's hands stilled for a moment. The timing couldn't be coincidental. If there were wolves or wolf hybrids in the area, it would explain both the pup's presence and the illegal traps. Her small town didn't take kindly to predators, real or imagined. The next few hours brought more whispers. Each client who entered seemed to carry a new piece of gossip. Wolves stealing chickens, mysterious howls in the night, strange tracks in the woods. Helena listened while maintaining her professional demeanor, but inside, her concern grew. By early afternoon, the rumors had evolved. Helena overheard her receptionist, Sarah, talking in hushed tones on the phone. "Well, I heard Dr. Caro's got something dangerous in there. Nobody's seen it, but Blue won't let anyone near the back room." The scrutiny was beginning, and Helena knew her clinic, already operating on razor-thin margins in their small community, couldn't afford negative attention. Yet as she looked at the sleeping pup, its bandaged paw a stark reminder of human cruelty, she knew she couldn't simply turn it away. Working carefully, Helena began preparing detailed medical records. If anyone questioned her actions, she wanted documentation of everything: the injuries, the treatment, the clear evidence of intentional harm. Her hands shook slightly as she typed her notes. Patient presents with severe trauma to right front. Paw consistent with steel trap injury. Additional lacerations suggest violent struggle to escape. Pattern of injuries indicates deliberate placement of a legal trapping device. The pup stirred on its bed of blankets, those wild eyes fixing on her with an unsettling intelligence. Blue immediately moved closer, offering comfort with his solid presence. Helena paused in her documentation, watching the interaction between the two animals. There was something almost mystical about it. This alliance between domestic and wild. As the afternoon wore on, the whispers grew louder. Helena could feel the weight of scrutiny settling over her clinic like a heavy blanket. Every time the front door opened, she tensed, wondering if this would be the moment someone demanded to see what or who she was protecting in her backroom. The evidence of deliberate harm weighed heavily on her mind. Someone in their community was not only aware of the wolves' presence, but actively trying to eliminate them. The crushed paw and deep gashes told a story of calculated cruelty, of traps set with clear purpose. This wasn't about protecting livestock. This was about extermination. Helena found herself checking and rechecking the clinic's locks, drawing the blinds earlier than usual. Blue remained steadfast, his aged body positioned between the pup and the door. as if he too understood the growing tension in their small town. The reality of her situation was becoming clear. By choosing to treat this animal, by documenting these injuries, she was taking a stand that could have serious consequences. Her clinic, which had always survived on the goodwill of the community, might not weather the storm of controversy that harboring a wolf hybrid could bring. Yet as she watched the pup's chest rise and fall in peaceful sleep, Helena knew she couldn't have made any other choice. The deliberate nature of its injuries demanded a response. Someone had to stand up against this kind of cruelty, even if it meant facing the whispers and scrutiny of her neighbors under the harsh fluorescent lights of her clinic. Helena gently cleaned the wounds on the wolf hybrid's leg. Her practiced fingers traced the deep gashes, each touch revealing more about the injury's source. These weren't random scratches from nature. The perfectly spaced puncture marks told a darker story. "Steel trap," she muttered, anger rising in her throat. The pup whimpered, and she softened her touch immediately. "I'm sorry, little one. I'll be more gentle." The bell above the clinic's front door chimed, followed by the sound of expensive shoes clicking against the linoleum floor. Helena looked up to see Daniel Rourke filling her doorway, his tailored suit incongruous in her modest examination room. Even before he spoke, his presence seemed to drain the warmth from the air. "Dr. Caro," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes, "I heard about your unusual patient." Helena instinctively moved to shield the pup from view. "Mr. Rourke, this is a private medical facility. You can't just—" Now, he interrupted, holding up his hands in a placating gesture that somehow felt threatening. "I'm here out of concern for our community. Word travels fast in small towns, and people are worried about a wild animal in their midst." Blue, the old farm dog, raised his head and gave a low growl. Rourke's eyes flicked to him dismissively. "This pup is injured and needs medical care," Helena said firmly. "That's all anyone needs to know." Rourke stepped closer, his expensive cologne mixing unpleasantly with the antiseptic smell of the clinic. "Dr. Caro, Helena, I understand your commitment to helping animals. It's admirable, but surely you see the liability here? A wolf hybrid in town?" He shook his head with exaggerated concern. "I'd hate to see anything happen to your practice over this unfortunate situation." The threat in his words was barely veiled. Helena felt her spine stiffen. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Rourke? Threatening?" He laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "I'm trying to help you. These creatures are dangerous. They belong in the wild, or better yet, nowhere near our expanding community. I'd be happy to take care of the situation for you." Helena's hands curled protectively around the examining table. This animal was deliberately trapped and injured. "I'm treating my patient, Mr. Rourke. That's what veterinarians do." "Admirable ethics," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "But ethics won't protect you when this thing turns violent, or when worried parents start pulling their pets from your practice." He pulled out a business card, placing it deliberately on her desk. "When you come to your senses, call me. I'll make sure the creature is properly handled." After he left, Helena's hands were shaking so badly she had to sit down. Blue patted over it and rested his head on her knee, offering silent comfort. The pup watched her with those intelligent, wild eyes, and she knew she'd made an enemy today. Next morning, the whispers had grown louder. Parents clutched their children closer when they passed her clinic. The local diner, where she'd always been welcomed with friendly smiles, suddenly felt hostile. She overheard fragments of conversations. Keeping a wild animal could attack anyone. Always seemed responsible before. She was restocking supplies when Elias Boone appeared in her doorway, his tall frame blocking the afternoon light. Unlike Rourke's intrusive presence the day before, Elias's quiet strength felt reassuring. "Heard you might be having some trouble," he said simply. His deep voice gentled. Helena felt tears threatening and blinked them back. Word travels fast. Rourke's been busy, Elias acknowledged, stepping inside. His weathered hands marked by years of carpentry work, fidgeted with his worn cap. He's got people scared, talking about danger to their kids, their pets. The pup isn't dangerous, Helena protested. It's injured, afraid. Someone set a steel trap, an illegal one, and I believe you, Elias interrupted quietly. Helena stopped, surprised. You do? He nodded, moving closer to look at the sleeping pup. Known Rourke longer than most. Seen how he operates. If he's this interested in a wounded animal, there's more to the story. I can't just hand over the pup, Helena said. The injuries. The trap. Something's wrong here, Elias. And this little one is evidence of whatever it is. Then don't, he said simply. Stand your ground. Easy to say, Helena managed a weak smile. But my practice will survive, Elias finished firmly. Truth has a way of coming out. And you've got more friends than you know. He hesitated, then added, including me. The warmth in his eyes made Helena's chest tight. For the first time since Rourke's visit, she felt her resolve strengthening. Thank you, she whispered. Elias nodded, understanding in his expression. Want me to take a look at that back door lock? Noticed it was sticky when I came by last week. The offer of practical help, so characteristic of him, made Helena smile genuinely for the first time that day. That would be wonderful. Wonderful. As Elias worked on the lock, Helena returned to treating the pup's wounds. The creature's eyes met hers, filled with a wild intelligence that both thrilled and unsettled her. Whatever Rourke's interest in this animal was, she knew she'd made the right choice in protecting it, even if that choice had just made her life considerably more complicated. Outside, she could hear Rourke's expensive car idling at a stoplight. He was making another round of the town, no doubt spreading more fear and doubt. But inside her clinic, with Elias's steady presence nearby and the pup under her care, Helena felt ready to face whatever came next. The old farm dog, Blue, settled himself between the front door and the examination table, his loyal vigil a reminder that not everyone could be turned against her. Some, like Elias, would see the truth and stand beside her. She just hoped it would be enough. Helena was still reeling from her confrontation with Rourke when her office phone rang early the next morning. The caller's official tone made her stomach clench. Dr. Caro? This is Margaret Webster from the County Health Department. We've received some concerning reports about your facility. We'll be conducting a surprise inspection today. Helena's hand tightened on the receiver. Today? But I usually get 2 weeks' notice for inspections. This is a special circumstance inspection, Doctor. We'll arrive at 2 o'clock sharp. The line went dead, leaving Helena staring at the phone. Through the window, she caught a glimpse of Rourke's silver Mercedes gliding past her clinic, and her jaw clenched. Of course. He was pulling strings, using his connections to pressure her. She looked around her clinic with new eyes. While she kept everything clean and organized, there were always little things that could be nitpicked by an inspector looking for problems. She had 5 hours to prepare. Okay, she muttered to herself. Let's get to work. Helena threw herself into a whirlwind of cleaning and organizing. She double-checked her medication logs, sterilized every instrument in sight, and scrubbed down surfaces that were already clean. Blue, the old farm dog who'd brought her the injured pup, watched her with concerned eyes from his corner. Between bursts of cleaning, she continued treating her special patient. The pup was recovering slowly but surely, though still weak from its injuries. As she changed its bandages, something about its coloring caught her attention. The reddish-gray fur had an unusual pattern she'd never seen in normal wolf-dog hybrids. Frowning, Helena pulled out her tablet and began researching. Her eyes widened as images appeared on the screen. The distinctive russet coat, the slightly smaller frame, the unique facial features, they all pointed to one conclusion. "Oh my God," she whispered. You're not just any hybrid. You're part red wolf. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Red wolves were one of the most endangered canid species in North America. Their population had been decimated, with only a handful of wild specimens remaining. Finding one here, especially a hybrid, was extraordinary. She dove deeper into her research, her cleaning forgotten. Red wolves had once roamed these mountains freely, but were now thought to be extinct in the region. Yet here was living proof that some bloodline had survived, hidden in the very forests Rourke wanted to bulldoze for his luxury lodges. The pup watched her with those intelligent eyes, and Helena felt a new weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This wasn't just about saving one injured animal anymore. This was about protecting an endangered species, one whose very existence could halt Rourke's development plans. A car door slammed outside, making Helena jump. She rushed to the window, relieved to see it was just a regular client dropping off their cat. But the sound reminded her of the impending inspection, and she returned to her frantic preparations. As she worked, her mind raced. The presence of an endangered species hybrid would require environmental impact studies before any development could proceed. No wonder Rourke was so desperate to get his hands on the pup. If word got out about a red wolf bloodline in the area, his plans for turning the wilderness into a playground for the wealthy would hit a major obstacle. The morning flew by in a blur of activity. Helena stored away her research materials carefully, making sure to document everything about the pup's unique characteristics. She knew Rourke would try to dispute her findings, but she had photographs and measurements to back up her assessment. At 1:45, she heard vehicles pulling into her parking lot. Through the window, she saw not only the county inspector's car, but also Rourke's Mercedes. He stepped out, adjusting his expensive suit, a satisfied smirk on his face. Helena straightened her shoulders and took a deep breath. The pup was safely secured in a back room, its presence perfectly legal under her veterinary license. Her clinic was spotless, her paperwork in order. She had nothing to hide, except the truth about exactly what kind of animal she was treating, and what that meant for Rourke's empire. The bell above the door chimed as Margaret Webster entered, followed by two other inspectors. Rourke lingered in the doorway, his presence a silent threat. "Dr. Caro," Webster said crisply, "we're here to conduct a thorough inspection of your facilities. Mr. Rourke has kindly offered to assist as a concerned citizen." Helena met Rourke's smug gaze steadily. "Of course," she said calmly. "I'm happy to show you everything. My clinic is, as always, in full compliance with all regulations." As she led the inspection team through her clinic, Helena felt the weight of her discovery pressing on her. In the back room, that injured pup represented not just an animal in need, but a direct challenge to Rourke's plans. She'd stumbled onto something much bigger than herself, and she knew the pressure was only going to increase. But looking at her pristine clinic, at Blue's loyal presence, and thinking of the rare creature in her care, Helena felt her resolve harden. Rourke might have money and influence, but she had truth on her side. And now, she had scientific evidence that his uninhabited development land was home to one of the rarest wolf species in North America. The inspection began, and Helena stood her ground, ready to defend everything she'd worked for, and the extraordinary secret she now protected. The morning of the inspection arrived with a heavy fog that seemed to mirror Helena's clouded thoughts. She had spent most of the night preparing, organizing files, and documenting every detail about the mysterious wolf pup. Her clinic, though modest, was spotless. At precisely 9 o'clock in the morning, 3 county officials arrived in their pressed suits and clipboards. Behind them, Daniel Rourke emerged from his luxury SUV, adjusting his expensive tie with practiced precision. His smile held the confidence of a man who believed victory was already his. "Dr. Caro," the lead inspector said, "we're here to conduct a thorough review of your facility, particularly regarding reports of dangerous wildlife being harbored without proper permits. Helena nodded calmly, though her heart raced. Of course. Please follow me. As they moved through the clinic, she could feel Rourke's presence like a shadow at her back. The inspectors examined every corner, every document, every protocol. Helena answered their questions with professional precision, her voice steady despite her nerves. Then came the moment she had prepared for. They reached the isolated room where the wolf pup was recovering. The creature lifted its head weakly, its intelligent eyes scanning the group. Before you make any judgments, Helena said, retrieving a thick folder from her desk, I need to show you something crucial. She laid out photographs, test results, and detailed documentation. This isn't just any wolf. Based on genetic markers and physical characteristics, this is a red wolf hybrid, a critically endangered species. The lead inspector's eyebrows shot up. Rourke's smug expression flickered. Furthermore, Helena continued, pulling out more evidence. These injuries weren't random. They were caused by illegal steel traps. She spread out photos of the pup's wounds, alongside images of the trap's distinctive marking patterns. Traps that were found on land scheduled for development. A heavy silence fell over the room. The inspectors huddled together, examining the evidence with growing concern. Rourke's face had turned to stone. These are serious allegations, Dr. Caro, the lead inspector said finally. They're not allegations, a deep voice spoke from the doorway. Elias Boone stood there, his quiet strength filling the room. I can confirm the location of those traps. I've worked that land for years. Helena felt a surge of gratitude for his presence. Elias moved to stand beside her, his solidarity clear and unwavering. Rourke's voice cut through the tension like a blade. This is absurd. That animal is clearly just a mixed-breed dog. And any traps on private property are there to protect legitimate interests. Steel traps are illegal in this county, regardless of property ownership, Helena countered. And I have DNA test results proving this pup's heritage. The inspectors continued their examination, but the atmosphere had shifted. What had begun as a potential shutdown of Helena's clinic had transformed into something much larger. Yet Helena could see Rourke making quiet phone calls in the corner, his influence already at work. After 2 hours, the lead inspector delivered their preliminary findings. While Dr. Caro's facility meets all basic requirements, we'll need time to process these additional claims. For now, the clinic can continue operating, but the situation with the wolf requires further review. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was enough for now. As the officials filed out, Rourke lingered behind. His eyes met Helena's with cold fury. You have no idea what you're dealing with, he said softly. This isn't over. No, Helena replied, feeling Elias's steady presence beside her. It isn't. After everyone left, Helena slumped against the examination table, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Elias placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Thank you, she whispered, for being here. Couldn't let you face them alone, he replied. Simply, but he's right about one thing, this isn't over. Helena looked at the sleeping pup, its chest rising and falling steadily. She knew Rourke's influence would delay any real action, knew he would find other ways to pressure her. The weight of his eventual retaliation pressed heavily on her mind. But she refused to back down. No matter what happens, she said firmly, I won't let him win. This pup deserves a chance to live, and those lands deserve protection. Elias nodded, his presence a quiet reminder that she wasn't alone in this fight. As evening settled over the clinic, Helena began her rounds, checking on her patients one last time. The confrontation had been won, but she could feel the larger battle looming. Rourke's wrath would come, and when it did, she would need all her strength to face it. The autumn night wrapped around Helena's clinic like a dark blanket, broken only by the soft glow from her office window. She sat at her desk, reviewing the day's victory at the inspection, though anxiety still gnawed at her. The wolf pup rested in the converted barn behind the clinic, where she had created a safe recovery space. A sharp crack pierced the quiet. Helena's head snapped up, her heart suddenly racing. Through her window, an orange glow flickered against the trees. Unnatural, threatening. The acrid smell of smoke hit her nostrils. No, no, no. She bolted from her chair, grabbing her phone. And keys. The barn was ablaze. Flames licked up the wooden walls, and thick black smoke poured from under the eaves. Helena could hear the terrified whimpers of the wolf pup inside. Without thinking, she rushed toward the barn doors. The heat slapped her face as she pulled them open, unleashing a wall of smoke that made her eyes water and her lungs burn. Hold on, she called out between coughs. I'm coming. Inside, the smoke was so thick she could barely see 3 feet ahead. The fire roared around her, consuming the dry wood with frightening speed. Somewhere in the inferno, the wolf pup's cries guided her forward. Here, I'm here. Helena crawled on her hands and knees, fighting for every breath. The flames had spread to the roof, sending burning debris crashing down around her. She reached the pup's enclosure, her trembling fingers working at the latch. The wolf pup huddled in the corner, ears flat against its head, eyes wide with terror. As Helena scooped it into her arms, a burning beam crashed down behind them, blocking their exit path. The heat was unbearable now, and her lungs screamed for clean air. Helena! A familiar voice cut through the roar of the flames. Helena, where are you? Elias! She tried to shout, but smoke choked her words into a rasp. Here, we're here! Through the flames and smoke, Elias's broad figure appeared like a ghost. He had wrapped his jacket around his face, but his eyes were clear and determined. Without hesitation, he reached them, his strong arms supporting Helena as she clutched the trembling pup. This way, he commanded, guiding them toward a section of wall where the flames were thinner. Cover your face. Together, they stumbled through the inferno. Helena's world narrowed to the feel of Elias's steady hand on her back and the precious weight of the pup against her chest. Just when she thought her lungs would burst, they burst through the barn doors into the cool night air. They collapsed onto the grass several yards from the burning building, gulping in fresh air. The wolf pup shivered in Helena's arms, but was alive, its wild eyes reflecting the dancing flames. Are you hurt? Elias's voice was hoarse as he checked them both over. His hands gentle but urgent. Helena shook her head, still coughing. The pup seems okay too. Elias, you saved our lives. They watched helplessly as the barn collapsed in on itself, sending sparks shooting into the night sky. In the distance, sirens wailed, but they all knew it was too late to save the structure. This was Rourke, Helena said, her voice hard with certainty. He did this. Elias's face grew grim. We both know it, but proving it. He's showing us what he's capable of. Helena looked down at the wolf pup, who had pressed itself against her, seeking comfort. He's willing to kill to keep his secrets. The sound of approaching fire trucks grew louder, but Helena barely noticed. Her mind was racing through the implications of what had just happened. The inspection hadn't stopped Rourke, it had only made him more dangerous. He had escalated from threats and intimidation to outright violence, and there was no telling what he might do next. Elias squeezed her shoulder, his touch anchoring her to the present moment. You're not alone in this, he said quietly, his eyes reflecting both concern and determination. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Helena nodded, grateful for his steady presence. As the firefighters arrived and began their work, she held the wolf pup close, feeling its heartbeat against her own. They had survived this night, but she knew with chilling certainty that Rourke's war against them was far from over. The flames continued to consume what remained of the barn, erasing years of work and memories. But as Helena watched with Elias By her side and the rescued pup in her arms, she felt something steel itself inside her. Rourke had meant to break her tonight. Instead, he had only made her more determined to stand her ground and protect what mattered, no matter the cost. Helena sat on the scorched ground outside her clinic, her clothes still reeking of smoke. The fire department had finally left, leaving behind the skeleton of her barn and the heavy weight of what could have happened. The wolf pup huddled against her leg, trembling but alive. They'd both barely escaped with their lives, thanks to Elias's timely arrival, her fingers absently stroked the pup's fur while tears rolled down her soot-stained cheeks. The clinic itself had suffered smoke damage, and blackened debris littered the yard. Everything she'd worked for seemed to be crumbling around her. 20 years of building trust in the community, of proving herself as more than just a country vet, and now this. Maybe I'm in over my head, she whispered, her voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. The old farm dog that had brought the pup lay nearby, watching them intently with those strangely intelligent eyes. Maybe I should just let them take you somewhere safer. The thought made her chest ache, but what choice did she have? Rourke had proven he would stop at nothing. Next time, someone might die. She could lose everything, her practice, her license, her life's work. The old dog stood up then, moving closer with deliberate steps. Something about its movement caught Helena's attention, something she'd seen before, but hadn't quite processed. The way it moved, the shape of its muzzle, the wild intelligence in its eyes, her breath caught in her throat. "Oh my God," she whispered, really looking at the dog. No, not a dog at all, for the first time. The pup whined softly, crawling toward the larger animal with familiar affection. The farm dog that had brought the injured pup wasn't just some good Samaritan animal. It was the pup's mother. A hybrid herself, somehow surviving on the edges of civilization, wise enough to seek help when her baby was hurt. Helena's hands trembled as she watched them together. The mother's coat showed the same distinctive reddish-gray markings as the pup, though weathered by years in the wild. She had managed to survive, to breed, to protect her bloodline against all odds. And when her pup was injured, she had trusted Helena enough to bring it to her. "You knew," Helena said softly, wonder replacing despair in her voice. "You knew I would help." The mother hybrid met her gaze steadily, and in that moment, Helena felt the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders, not as a burden, but as a purpose. This wasn't just about saving one injured pup anymore. This was about protecting an entire bloodline of these remarkable creatures, perhaps some of the last of their kind in these mountains. The revelation transformed her fear into determination. Rourke wasn't just threatening her clinic or one animal, he was trying to erase something precious and rare from the world. The mother hybrid had trusted her with not just her pup's life, but the future of their entire species. Helena wiped her eyes, straightening her shoulders despite the exhaustion that pulled at her. "We're not giving up," she said firmly, looking between mother and pup. "I won't let them win. Not now that I understand what's really at stake." The mother hybrid moved closer, pressing her warm body against Helena's side in a gesture of trust that brought fresh tears to her eyes. The pup nestled between them, creating a circle of shared purpose and protection. In that moment, Helena knew she would fight with everything she had, not just for herself, but for these remarkable creatures who had chosen to trust her with their survival. The night air was still thick with smoke, and the ruins of her barn stood as a testament to what she was up against. But Helena felt stronger now, more certain. Sometimes it took losing almost everything to see what really mattered. The mother hybrid had shown her that trust, once given, came with a sacred responsibility. And Helena Caro was not about to let that trust be betrayed. The old dog stood up then, moving closer with deliberate steps. Something about its movement caught Helena's attention, something she'd seen before but hadn't quite processed. The way it moved, the shape of its muzzle, the wild intelligence in its eyes. Helena's breath caught in her throat as realization dawned. "Oh my God," she whispered, her heart pounding. She looked between the old dog and the pup, seeing now what had been right in front of her. The same distinctive reddish-gray fur, the same wild eyes. The dog wasn't just a good Samaritan, it was the pup's mother. A hybrid herself, who had somehow known to trust Helena with her injured baby. The discovery sent a surge of renewed purpose through Helena's body. She wasn't just protecting one injured animal. She was safeguarding an entire bloodline, a rare and precious legacy that Rourke would destroy without hesitation. "We're not giving up," she said firmly, wiping her tears away. The hybrid mother watched her with those knowing eyes, and Helena felt the weight of that trust settle on her shoulders. Elias appeared at the clinic's back door, his face still smudged with soot from the rescue. "Helena, you okay out here?" She stood up, determination replacing despair. "I need your help, Elias. We're going to fight back the right way." Over the next several hours, they worked methodically. Helena gathered her medical records, documenting every injury she'd treated on the pup. The crushed paw, the deep gashes, clear evidence of illegal steel traps. Elias helped her photograph the injuries, creating a timeline of the pup's treatment and recovery. "We need more," Helena said, spreading the documents across her examination table. The traps themselves would be proof of criminal activity on Rourke's land. Elias nodded grimly. "I know where they are. Been doing some scouting of my own." He pulled out his phone, showing Helena photographs he'd taken of multiple steel traps, hidden throughout Rourke's uninhabited property, they contacted sympathetic wildlife officers who had long suspected Rourke's illegal activities but lacked proof. 2 agreed to testify about the protected status of red wolves and the laws Rourke had violated. "The county hearing is in 3 days," Helena said, organizing their evidence into clear, compelling exhibits. "Rourke will try to paint me as dangerous and irresponsible, but we have science and law on our side." Elias squeezed her shoulder gently. "And truth, don't forget that." As they worked, Helena could feel Rourke's influence at work in the town. Strange cars drove slowly past the clinic. Anonymous calls threatened her license. But with each attempt to intimidate her, Helena's resolve grew stronger. The hybrid mother and pup stayed close, as if sensing the importance of what was happening. Helena had created a secure recovery space for them inside the clinic, away from prying eyes. Watching them together, the mother's gentle guidance, the pup's growing strength, reminded her exactly what she was fighting for. "It's not just about the animals anymore," she told Elias as they finished preparing their presentation for the hearing. "It's about standing up to people like Rourke who think they can buy or burn anything that gets in their way." They worked late into the night, knowing Rourke would use every trick and connection he had to discredit them. But Helena felt stronger with each piece of evidence they assembled, each fact they verified, each witness they prepared. "Whatever happens at that hearing," Elias said softly, "you've already won by not backing down. You've shown this town what real courage looks like." Helena looked at their carefully organized case, the photographs, medical records, witness statements, and legal precedents. Then she looked at the hybrid mother and pup, living proof of what was at stake. She knew Rourke wouldn't go down without a fight, but for the first time since the fire, she felt ready for whatever came next. This wasn't just about saving her clinic anymore. It was about protecting something rare and precious, about standing up for what was right when everyone else looked away. Helena had spent her life helping animals who couldn't defend themselves. Now with Elias by her side and the truth as her weapon, she would face Rourke and show the world exactly what one determined country vet could do. The county courthouse loomed before Helena like a mountain she had to climb. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her leather briefcase, filled with carefully organized evidence. Elias stood beside her on the courthouse steps, his quiet strength helping to steady her nerves. "You've got this," he said softly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The truth is on your side. Inside the hearing room, Daniel Rourke had already commanded attention. He sat at the front table in an expensive charcoal suit, surrounded by a team of polished lawyers. His confident smirk made Helena's stomach turn. The county commissioners filed in, and the hearing began. Rourke's presentation was slick and practiced. He painted a picture of economic prosperity through his development plans, dismissing Helena's claims as the desperate actions of a small-town vet trying to stay relevant. Dr. Caro is threatening hundreds of jobs and millions in revenue over what amounts to a feral dog, Rourke declared smoothly. Her clinic barely meets standards, and her judgment is questionable at best. Helena watched several commissioners, nodding along. Her heart sank as Rourke's lawyers presented doctored environmental surveys, showing no protected species in the area. But when her turn came, she stood tall, drawing strength from Elias's encouraging presence in the gallery. I'd like to present evidence of illegal steel traps found on the proposed development land. Helena began, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. She projected photos onto the screen, brutal metal devices covered in blood, carefully documented, locations and dated images of the injuries they'd caused. These traps are not only illegal, but were deliberately set to eliminate evidence of protected species. She continued, laying out medical records and expert testimony from wildlife officers. The commissioners leaned forward, their expressions shifting from skepticism to concern. Then came her masterstroke. I'd like to present final proof, Helena announced. At her signal, Elias opened the side door. The wolf pup limped in, followed by its mother. Gasps filled the room. The animal's distinctive reddish-gray fur and wild features were unmistakable to anyone familiar with red wolves. These are not feral dogs, Helena stated firmly. This is a red wolf hybrid mother and pup, representing a bloodline we thought was lost. Their presence proves this land as active habitat for an endangered species. Rourke's face had turned an ugly shade of red. He jumped to his feet, but before he could speak, one of his own men cracked under the pressure. Mr. Rourke told us to set those traps, the man blurted out. Said we had to clear out any wolves before the surveys. The room erupted in chaos. Rourke's carefully constructed facade crumbled as more evidence emerged. His lawyers scrambled to damage control, but the commissioners' faces had hardened into masks of disapproval. The hearing concluded with a unanimous vote to halt Rourke's development and investigate his activities. But Rourke wasn't finished. As Helena left the courthouse, gratefully accepting congratulations from supporters, she heard rapid footsteps behind her. You've ruined everything. Rourke's voice was a snarl. Helena turned to find him blocking her path, his face contorted with rage. Before she could react, he grabbed her arm roughly, fingers digging in like claws. Let her go. Elias's voice cut through the moment. He appeared at Helena's side, steady as a rock. Or what, Carpenter? Rourke sneered, but his grip tightened painfully on Helena's arm. You'll build me a nice box? Elias moved with unexpected speed for such a quiet man. In one smooth motion, he broke Rourke's hold and pushed Helena behind him. Rourke stumbled back, then lunged forward with a roar of frustration. But Elias stood firm, deflecting the attack while Helena called for help. Police officers who had been nearby rushed to the scene. They quickly restrained Rourke, who continued to struggle and shout threats. The man who had built his empire on intimidation and lies was finally exposed for what he was. As the officers led Rourke away in handcuffs, Helena sagged against Elias in relief. Her arm ached where Rourke had grabbed her, but the pain was nothing compared to the triumph of the moment. Justice had prevailed, not just for her, but for the creature she had sworn to protect. Thank you, she whispered to Elias, who still kept a protective arm around her shoulders. Always, he replied simply, and in that word was the promise of more battles faced together, more victories shared side by side. The weeks following Rourke's arrest brought a gradual but profound transformation to Helena's world. Her clinic, once viewed with suspicion, now bustled with activity as locals brought their animals in for care. The same people who had whispered doubts now spoke of her with admiration. "You showed real backbone standing up to Rourke," old Mr. Jenkins said one morning, bringing in his arthritic sheepdog. "Not many would have risked everything like that." Helena smiled as she checked the dog's joints. "I just did what was right," she replied, but warmth spread through her chest at the recognition. The clinic itself had been repaired and improved, thanks to Elias's skilled hands. He'd rebuilt the barn better than before, adding special enclosures for wildlife rehabilitation. The work had given them countless hours together, their relationship deepening with each shared moment. One evening, as they sat on the clinic's front porch watching the sunset, Elias reached for her hand. "You know," he said softly, "I never thought I'd find someone who made me feel alive again after Sarah passed. But you've brought light back into my world." Helena squeezed his hand, her heart full. "You've been my rock through all of this," she replied. "I couldn't have done it without you." Their first kiss was gentle, natural as breathing. It felt like coming home after a long journey. The wildlife officers who now regularly consulted with Helena brought updates about the hybrid mother and pup. They had established a protected zone in the forest where Rourke had once planned his development. Trail cameras captured images of the pair thriving in their natural habitat. "Look at this," Officer Martinez showed her one afternoon, displaying footage of the pup playing in a sunlit clearing, its injured paw fully healed. The mother watched from nearby, alert but relaxed. "They're doing beautifully. Your work saved more than just these two. You've protected a whole ecosystem." Helena studied the footage, remembering the trembling, injured creature that had first been brought to her clinic. Now it bounded through the forest with wild grace, its mother's watchful presence ensuring its safety. They were living symbols of resilience and hope. The town council, chastened by their earlier skepticism, approached Helena about establishing a wildlife conservation program. "We need someone who understands both the animals and the community," the mayor explained. "Someone with proven integrity." Helena accepted the role, knowing it would allow her to help more animals while maintaining her veterinary practice. Elias supported her completely, often accompanying her on trips into the forest to check on their wild charges. Their relationship blossomed in these quiet moments together. Elias's steady presence and unwavering support gave Helena the confidence to embrace both her professional success and their growing love. They began planning a future together, talking of expanding the clinic and creating a proper wildlife rehabilitation center. On a crisp autumn morning, Helena and Elias hiked to a ridge overlooking the protected forest. Through binoculars, they spotted the hybrid mother and pup moving through the trees below. The pup had grown stronger, its movements sure and confident. The mother paused, looking up at their observation point with knowing eyes before leading her offspring deeper into the wilderness. "They're truly free now," Helena whispered, leaning against Elias's solid warmth. "Thanks to you," he replied, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You've changed everything, for them, for the town, for me." Helena smiled, feeling at peace. She had stood her ground, protected the innocent, and found love in the process. The forest stretched before them, wild and beautiful, a testament to the power of doing what was right, no matter the cost. The hybrid family would continue to thrive, their bloodline preserved, while Helena had found her own place to belong, both in her work and in Elias's heart. If something today spoke to the part of you that still believes in love, stay a while. Subscribe. I'll be here again tomorrow with another story worth feeling.